86 days out from the midterm elections, with growing concerns over what actions Donald Trump and his administration may take to try and tighten federal controls over what is supposed to be state-run elections. This is in the Constitution. Despite his repeated efforts to put pressure on his party, Senate Republicans left town yesterday for their August recess without moving on his much-talked-about Save America Act. But the voter suppression bill is only one of the many ways Trump has been working to put his thumb, his forefinger, and all his hand on the scale for the Republicans. The New York Times is reporting that there are a growing number of election deniers who hold offices involved in state and local elections across the country. The Times points to at least 25 county-level election officials who have all come to office since Trump returned to power and currently play roles in elections in counties that are home to key House, Senate, or statewide midterm races this year. The Times adds that, quote, this surge in election skeptic officials adds to the ranks of at least 69 who are already in office across different states. Guys, this is the stuff that folks are most concerned about, is that it's one thing to say an election is stolen. It's one thing to spread those lies. It's another thing to actually do the action. And Donald Trump, during 2020, said over and over that the election was going to be stolen as he went into November. And then he said it was stolen, but people stood up. Bill Barr would not sign off on it. He was the attorney general at the time. He had other aides within the White House who were like, I'm not doing this, who left the White House instead of operating under this lie. There were a lot of lies before then that they ignored, but that's okay. They got there eventually. But now you have the exact opposite. You have people who embrace the lie. So high level, so in the weeds, so inside baseball. And so I guess for your average American, would you, Mr. Cobb, explain to them what it means that come tomorrow morning, Todd Blanche will no longer be the acting attorney general. He will no longer be the deputy attorney general. He'll be walking into a Department of Justice that I think still has a big, long, humongous flag of Donald Trump's face on it. What does that mean for your average person who lives in this country?
Well, I think that's to the average person. I think what you see is this is just further inundation of the level of fascist totalitarianism that we see in the United States now, with Trump's pictures everywhere, his vanity projects receiving the billions of dollars that are no longer going to school children and vaccines. That Blanche, in taking over the Justice Department, inherited a clear mandate from President Trump, because Pam Bondi, as you'll recall, was kicked out merely because she was not able to keep prosecuting Trump's enemies at a pace that was satisfactory to him. Blanche remedied that, quickly indicting Comey and overseeing other revenge prosecutions, perpetuating the termination and elimination of key Justice Department officials of experience and integrity. Over 2,000 lawyers are no longer at the Justice Department. Most of them were highly experienced people who brought a lot of capability. We have seen Blanche, as did Bondi, steer clear of the former priorities of every administration: national defense, national security, and cartel activity, money laundering, the types of crimes that rapidly erode our democracy, and focus them almost exclusively on immigration and revenge and grievance prosecution. So I think it doesn't produce a dramatic change from what happened this week or 2 months ago, but it is part of the inexorable plotting that is going on within the Trump administration, much like the 1930s in Germany, as institutions in that country were gradually falling by the wayside and under the control of Hitler. That's what we're seeing with President Trump.
Late last week and then over the weekend, they are convinced they have the upper hand. They're determined to go back to all these conditions that were talked about with the MOU, which is extraordinary. They're talking about like the withdrawal of American forces from the region, which the U.S. can't do, given what its allies in the regions have been through. So I do think this is the right sort of short-term step for Trump. But they just, the back and forth, the constant threats from the president, I mean, there's been nearly a dozen examples now of Taco, has emboldened the Iranians. That was a clear message I got from him. And I think you see also it has another impact in terms of Israel, where the Israeli government, Bibi Netanyahu, rejected this Trump administration peace plan. Jared Kushner has spent months and months on this, and that's a setback for President Trump. And that's the kind of danger here. The U.S. looks weak in the region, and so people are trying to exploit it.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday rejected a peace plan for Gaza that was backed by the Trump administration and accepted by Hamas. The 15-point proposal had laid out a phased process for the disarmament of Hamas and the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. When announcing the agreement between his Board of Peace and Hamas late last month, President Trump touted it as historic and a monumental step toward lasting peace and security. Netanyahu, however, who faces an uphill election fight at the end of October and is attempting to shore up his far-right coalition, dismissed the plan, saying Israel's military will not carry out any withdrawal until Hamas is genuinely disarmed.
I was talking to someone who's not in politics, and they asked me, why does anyone care how folks answer this question? If they say it was certified, if they kind of throw their hands up and say, he was president. But can you explain to folks why it matters? And I think a lot of our viewers know, but just so we got it on the record, why it matters when people ask the question, who won the election, that it's easy for people to say that Joe Biden won, and why that's important, why you want to get folks on the record on that?
Profoundly important question, Eugene. A lot of people may say, oh, well, that seems like a very technical, common sense question. Of course, Joe Biden won the election, but it is an essential test of their independence. When I ask a nominee for the federal judiciary whether Joe Biden won the election and they say, well, it was certified, and they refuse to give an accurate answer, they are simply providing a canned, rehearsed response that is dictated to them by the White House. And this position of trust requires an element of independence and courage, frankly, to stand up to the president. Federal judges have to stand up to the president of the United States. And so it is an essential test of whether they are willing to defy the Trump obsession and fixation with his losing the 2020 election. We all know that Joe Biden won. If these officials are unwilling to say so, they should be disqualified from this position of trust.
Joe, this was a deal that was announced by the administration that had zero chance of ever coming into effect. The administration has a pattern, as you know, of overpromising and underdelivering. This could be Exhibit 1. Hamas has zero desire to disarm. They could give up 100 weapons tomorrow, and none of us would know whether they're still sitting on 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000. So the idea that they're going to give up their one means of having impact, no way that's going to happen. And as you just properly said, Bibi Netanyahu does not want this war to end for political reasons. Also, though, Israel occupies an enormous swath of Gaza, and there's a growing constituency in Israel for holding on to big parts of Gaza. So again, you don't have any of the basics of an agreement here. So guess what? This was never going to happen. And what Bibi Netanyahu has done is simply made it explicit. You can blame it on him. You can blame it on Hamas. But again, this was doomed to fail from the get-go.
Monday, 10 August, year of our Lord 2026. For 4 hours a day, 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, we're going to be getting into all these topics and getting below the surface to the signal, not the noise. Cleta and Benjamin will join us at 5 to go through both the immigration crisis and Cleta on the election crisis. You saw the talking points memo. I've got it up on my Getter account. Going after Cleta, hammer and tong. You just heard what Blumenthal, Connecticut, when he asked these questions of judges and people going to DOJ, profoundly important to get the right answer or to give an answer on the stolen election of 2020. Yes, the election of 2020 was stolen. Obvious it was stolen. We'd like to see a little more action now. We're going to have John Solomon up here later. A little more action from the apparatus itself. And now that Todd will be sworn in today at 2 o'clock, it's supposed to be closed to media. You never know, obviously, with the president. Real America's Voice will be around to cover it. That'll be during Jack Posovic's hour. Todd Blanche in as Attorney General. Also, Will Scharf replaces, I think it's Dave Warrington over as the White House counsel. So the president, I think, looking for two wartime consiglieres as we get down to crunch time, not just here in the run-up to the midterms, but if, heaven forbid, the Democrats win and they are chomping at the bit to win, they will turn the White House into Fort Apache. So a big shift in the legal apparatus today, both at the White House counsel for the office of the president, and obviously Todd Blanche, a long-term friend of the show and a colleague, now sworn in as Attorney General. There'll be other restaffing of the DAG, PDAG, all that coming out, I'm sure, after today. On the reality of the PCOs, we've said economic warfare. Back in January, we had them on their heels. They basically empowered Scott Bessent to be economic warfare warlord. It brought 1 million people into the streets with, I think, 40,000, between 10 and 40,000 killed by the regime. But Scott Bessent was far down the path of breaking the back of the regime without firing a shot. Now, we strongly recommend we get back to that the kinetic part has clearly come up short, as we kept saying it was, and no need to reinitiate that. You can break them economically. But this means full embargo. In this deal they sent, but it wasn't a deal. It was a slap in the face. America's got to pay reparations. America has to give us all this money. America has to rebuild the country. America has to do this, do that, do the other thing. Biggest thing they wanted was the fleet, the two battle groups out of the North Arabian Sea blocking the Persian Gulf. What does that lead us to believe? Well, that's the vice. You keep that on and keep putting the screws down. Also, full sanctions, no money laundering coming out of our great allies in the Gulf, particularly in Dubai, who are always money laundering into Persia. You cut all that off. You cut the Europeans off. You put the Chinese Communist Party on notice that you keep trying to rearm these guys through Pakistan, another great ally of the United States. There are going to be consequences, and you break these guys economically. No more kinetic warfare. You don't need it. Break them. Let Scott Bessent take the ball, and let Scott Bessent run with the ball on breaking these. Also, Netanyahu, America's greatest ally, telling President Trump, sorry, not sorry. The peace deal you've worked on for 2 years, everything you've done to try to bring peace to the region, we're not interested. So I think we ought to act accordingly. Like I said, they don't. That is someone that is asserting their sovereignty, and God bless them. They should go do that, but they're no longer protectorate. That means no more cash, no more Title 219 and the NDAA. Do people feel foolish now? Don't seem like America's greatest ally. They're not going to take the deal. And as a sovereign nation, that is fully 100% their decision to make. But you don't have to do it. You're not a vassal state. You're not a protectorate. That means we don't need this alliance that's not an alliance. They do what they want, when they want, how they want. We end up picking up the tab. Those days are over. You don't want the Gaza peace plan. You don't want Qatar, and you don't want Turkey. And I'm saying, hey, there's a lot of questions there. Qatar is the funder of the Muslim Brotherhood. Turkey is huge in the Muslim Brotherhood. You're setting up a two-state solution. If you want a one-state solution, God bless you. Go for it. But President Trump laid out, after years of this peace board, and you said, not interested. That's fine. Go your own way. Hope it works out. We're going to take a short break. We're going to go to Texas. We got Texas, we got Rickers, we got Solomon, Navarro from the White House. Grace is going to join us. Talk about Bill Blaster. Absolutely packed wall to wall on the Monday in August. in the war room. Strap in. Back in a moment.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Gold is moving, but that's not the reason you buy gold. You buy gold because it's a hedge against times of financial instability. End of the dollar empire. Birchgold.com/Bannon. End of the dollar empire. Talk to Philip Patrick and the team. I'm going to have Philip on here. If you go right now to the top of Citizens Free Press, the great Kane, Citizen Kane, has got like 5 stories in a row about national debt. The Washington Post, believe it or not, today did actually a pretty good breakdown, some good graphics in there, and a main editorial. You ought to check it out. I don't agree with everything in there, but it's a pretty good way to get you up to speed, particularly the first time they tie together the demographic crisis we're going to hit in about 2030 with not having enough babies. Of course, the Washington Post, being progressive in the Bezos, Amazon, WAPO, says this is when we got to flood the zone with immigration. But anyway, leave that aside. Just read it on this. You understand the question gets to be the petrodollar, the Gulf, the economic war that's about to commence, the storm clouds on the horizon. Check it all out. Understand why gold is a hedge against times of financial turbulence, a still point in a turning world. Also like to thank the folks at Patriot Mobile 972. Patriot, a Christian-based company that supports, I think it was over $3 million, around $3 million last year they gave to various causes that are backed by conservatives. Glenn's story, Jenny's story, 972 Patriot. Talk to somebody with the East Texas accent right now. If you want to have a breakout prayer session, go for it. They're a Christian-based company. And I got to tell you, if we didn't have Patriot Mobile down in Texas, I don't know what we'd be doing because of such a great support of the grassroots. Brian Harrison, one of the issues we have, in fact, it's the issue we have as I go around the country and spent months and months and months in Texas, but and I took some calls today on John Frederick's show, and you could tell the question people have about intensity and urgency and all of that. We have got to insert urgency into the system here for these midterms because the other side has it. And look, I understand people are writing these things in great think pieces and thinking deep thoughts. It's all fine. We got plenty of time for deep thoughts. Right now, this is like in a war. You got plenty of time for grand strategy, and then you got time you're in the trenches, and you got to come up over the top, and you got to put fixed bayonets, and you got to roll. We're in a fixed bayonets period, not a great thoughts period. So what are we doing? You're a fire breather down in Texas. What are we going to do to light the fire? Because we do know when we light the fire on the establishment, when I say that, when they get scared, they take actions that the grassroots like, and good things happen. So how are you going to put the fear of God in this Texas political establishment, sir?
Well, look, I mean, the future of Texas and America is on the line in the upcoming midterm elections. The Democrats are acting like it, but unfortunately down here in Texas, we got too many Republicans still sitting around twiddling their thumbs while the other side is charging the hill. The time to fight is now. The time for action, not just rhetoric, is now. And it's not going to be good enough for elected Republicans in Texas just to talk about the many ways in which the Democrats are terrible. And yes, the Democrats are objectively horrible. James Talarico is the most radical extremist to ever run statewide in the state of Texas. The Democrats are socialists. The Democrats are progressives. They want to destroy the country. All those things are true, but we have got to get voters excited to vote not just against the Democrats, but to vote for Republicans. And so that's why I think the conventional wisdom is totally wrong on this. The media, the elite class, they want elected Republicans to get all soft and linguini spines as we head into the general elections. That's not only wrong; it's the complete opposite of what voters want. They want motivation, right? So what I'm calling for is for us to take the next 3 months and let's lead like the bold Republicans we're supposed to be. I want Governor Abbott to bring us back for a special session. Property taxes are crushing people. They're crushing people across all political spectrums and all age groups. Let's start eliminating property taxes today. Let's have a special session to deal with property taxes.
Just help people out here because you've done this a couple times before. How quick is a special session? Got to wait 6 months. How quickly can it be called? When can it take place? And what are the 2 or 3 items that Brian Harrison, with his hand on the pulse of the grassroots, think must be addressed, sir?
Well, we absolutely, people are confused about this. The governor could call a special session. It's 9:22 in Texas on the 10th of August. He could call a special session at 9:23 on the 10th of August. And long before the month is over, before we get out of the month of August, we could pass bold, conservative, pro-liberty legislation. And a lot of items I think we need to deal with. But top of my list, property taxes. We got the highest effective property tax rate in the country, and they're about to go up even higher. Bills are coming out in just a couple weeks. Deal with that. Slash people's property tax by 40%, 50% today. Start eliminating them. I can think of nothing that would get voters more excited than to have Republicans slash their property taxes and start eliminating them. Number two, let's deal with the growing threat from Sharia here in the state of Texas. Voters are starving for that. And then also, let's deal with this birth tourism thing. Let's not just take it on the chin what the Supreme Court did in this birthright citizenship thing. Okay, with the Supreme Court dealt with citizenship. I can't overturn that. But why is the state of Texas advertising that we'll give birth certificates to illegals and doing it in Spanish on Texas government websites? The governor could order HHS to stop giving birth certificates to illegals in Texas today. And we could also, in a special session this month, within a week or two, let's make birth tourism a felony. So those are things that we absolutely could be done. The governor, I know he's up for election too. We all are. But guess what? He's governor today. People want leadership today. They want to be inspired to go to the polls today, not next year. And then also, we got to win this Paxton Talarico thing. Talarico's got to be defeated. Why in the world is our fake Republican speaker, and people are shocked to learn the Republican speaker in Texas was elected by James Talarico, so that explains a little bit what's going on here. But James Talarico, I am still calling for our Republican speaker, to strip James Talarico of his leadership positions. People are shocked and horrified to learn that as we speak right now, 3 months from a general election, okay, James Talarico still holds multiple powerful leadership positions in the Republican-dominated Texas House. And guess what? He gets more money. More money for it.
Keep that up there. But his record, he's so bizarre. He's so outside the mainstream. The one hook he's got is to say he's got all these bills passed and he can work across the aisle. That's what he keeps saying. He's a freak. He's like a circus freak. But he touts this. How possibly could the Republicans give this guy the one tiny thing he hangs on to show the world on television ads that he's not a circus freak, sir?
No, it's disgusting. I watched James Talarico a week or two ago. I think it was CBS National News bragging about his, quote, legislative record. And get this, he says that James Talarico has had 65 bills, not authored, not filed, not put in the closet somewhere, passed into law in the state of Texas. James Talarico, unfortunately, does have legislative track record to run on because the fake Republican Speaker of the Texas House, elected by James Talarico, gave him a legislative record to run on. It's an absolute betrayal of Republicans in the state of Texas. And think about this. After James Talarico elected our Republican Rhino Speaker, our Republican Speaker returned the favor, prioritized his bills, gave him a platform. I think it's one of the most scandalous but underreported aspect of James Talarico's rise to national prominence is that he didn't just come through the Democrat ranks. He is a product of the fake Republican leadership in the Texas House who elevated him, who gave him a record, who put him on a platform that led him to the Democrat nomination. And here's this. If you're a Texas taxpayer right now, get this. After Talarico elected our speaker and our speaker put him in leadership, guess what came with that? More of your tax money. The speaker required every vice chair be a Democrat. He made Talarico multiple vice chairs, and then for the first time ever, give them extra tax money. So right now, because he still holds these leadership positions, 3 months out from the primary, Texas taxpayers, because of the fake Republican leadership in the Texas House, are literally being forced to fund James Talarico's operation. This is a betrayal of the voters, and this is the kind of stuff that depresses the voters from getting out. I want to inspire voters. Let's be bold. Let's govern boldly. I'm sick of Democrats, Stephen, fighting harder for the future of Texas and America than elected Republicans. Let's call the governor. Let's have a special session. Let's slash property taxes, start eliminating them. Let's deal with Sharia law. Let's make birth tourism a felony. And then to you, Speaker Burrows, get James Talarico stripped of every one of his committees. Stop forcing my constituents and 30 million Texans to fund Talarico's operation. The future of Texas is on the line. Paxton's got to win this thing. Talarico's got to be defeated. And voters must be excited to get out and vote for the kind of fearless, pro-liberty Republican leadership that they elected 2 years ago and 4 years ago.
Okay, I just want to bifurcate this before I lose you. And
Yeah.
You're absolutely correct. By the way, the future that Talarico wants for Texas is a freak show. Very dark, very dark. If you drill down on Talarico, I mean, this is what blows my mind, that nobody's reporting the fact that the Republican speaker has made this guy like a thing,
Yep.
right? They can actually, besides the freak show of his past statements and what he believes in, he can hang his hat on, oh, yeah, past 65 bills. It is shocking that the Republicans do that. So we're going to have Grace up here in a while. We need, you're saying contact the governor's office to demand a special session, and you're saying call the speaker, Burrows, of the Texas House, and we'll put the numbers up and they'll be on Bill Blaster, to demand that Talarico be stripped of everything right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's call the governor. Let's have a special session. Let's deliver a bold Republican agenda that will get people excited, and do it because it's the right thing, okay? But it will also motivate people to come out and reelect Republicans here in Texas. And then number two, tell the Republican speaker, get James Talarico off of his committees. And you're right, James Talarico is the most radical extremist. But James, six genders Talarico. He doesn't use the term woman. He calls them his neighbors with uteruses. He's very concerned about transgender abortion care. What is that? He believes the biblical narrative of Joseph and Mary was there to justify elective abortions. I mean, this guy is the most radical extremist to ever run for statewide office in Texas. But unfortunately, he is still holding leadership positions in the Texas House that come with extra taxpayer money. So Texas taxpayers, I mean, he never should have had these positions. He's got them. The least our fake Republican speaker could do is strip him from his leadership positions and stop giving him the extra money to fund his operation. But that's what's happening right now. Give voters a reason to be excited to go to the polls.
We get about 20 seconds. Where do people go for your Twitter feed? It's the most feared in Austin.
The most hated Twitter feed in the Capitol, at Brian E. Harrison on X. Please go there right now. Take 2 seconds. At Brian E. Harrison on X. At Brian E. Harrison on X. Whether you live in Texas or not, what happens here affects the rest of the country. We're on the front lines for the battle of the future of Western civilization. Stephen the Posse, you guys.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Our go-to folks for getting people jacked up are Brian E. Harrison in Texas. And Grace is going to join us in a moment about Bill Blaster and how that can help you. It's an app that can help you reach out to everybody. But we need the governor for the special session, and we need the Speaker Burrows, on the Talarico situation. I now want to go to the White House, Pebble Beach, as it's called, right outside the West Wing, Dr. Peter Navarro. Dr. Navarro, lost in, because of everything else going on, from Gaza to the Persian Gulf, everything in between, the reflecting pool, everything in between. It's lost on the signal is getting lost, sir. So we've got you on today to fire people up on the signal, particularly President Trump. Remember, Trumponomics is predicated around the reindustrialization of this nation. We had Jeff Clark on the other day, who did really a brilliant job about how it was deindustrialized using EPA, and how Lee Zeldin's done a terrific job of kind of turning things around. But also this reindustrialization deals with the supply side tax cut to provide capital for manufacturing. It deals with our favorite Navarro, Bannon, supporting President Trump on the tariffs situation. And this is manifested in trade. And so there's been some really good news on trade here recently. And I want to make sure people know about it, that we are reindustrializing this nation. We're bringing back high value added manufacturing jobs. You've been on top of this, and this massive trade deficit, which, the Gary Cohns of the world just said, Bannon, that's just an accounting thing. I said, no, it's not. No, it's not. Talk to Lou Dobbs. It's just not an accounting function. Your thoughts, sir, on the signal, not the noise of this economy?
Well, I'm going to hit that hard, but I'm going to give you some signal. I don't know if you know Will Scharf, but this gentleman is taking over as White House legal counsel, and he's as pure and good on MAGA as it gets. He ran in 2024 in Missouri for Attorney General on a MAGA platform. He's nails. He's one of the most impressive guys I've met in my going on 6 years now on these grounds. So it's good news.
Hang on. We did mention in the first block. We mentioned in the first block that Todd's going to be sworn in today after being confirmed. He's going to be sworn at 2 p.m. If it's open to the press at all, which I assume that it probably be, Rev is going to cover it. Will Scharf is announced as replacing Dave Warrington as White House counsel. What I told the audience is that in the run-up to the midterms and beyond, now President Trump is starting to put in place, I think you would say, wartime consiglieres, because, hey, guess what? The Democrats are making noises like they want to turn the White House into Fort Apache. And, of course, if anybody can fight back, President Trump can. So I think there's they're restocking the team with some hitters here, and I think it can only be good news.
It's very good news. And I'll have some good stuff for you this week, Steve. Your audience might get tired of me, but I'm going to demand to come back. I've been digging through all of the stuff that John Solomon has been able to get out into the public, which has been, of course, ignored by the legacy media. But I'm doing my job in packaging that in very easy to understand messages and op-eds. So stay tuned. You're going to be talking to me about the depth and breadth of the stuff that's out there. I mean, if you look at what John's put up there on the White House site,
it's amazing.
It's amazing. China, it's Maricopa
it's amazing.
County, it's vulnerabilities at the ballot box and all this. And it's like, this is what's so wrong, Steve, with just about every journalistic outlet except War Room. It's like they won't deal with the hard truth about what happened in 2020. And so we're going to keep working it, and Solomon is going to do what Solomon does, keep getting more and more truth. And yeah, we need, Grassley's doing a great job at the Senate side. Jordan, yeah. I don't know what happened to Jim. He's been so unhelpful in so many ways with that gavel in his hand. But we're going to put this little heat on there to get some stuff done.
This is what we're trying to, if we're going to hold the House, let's use the gavel. One last thing before you get into trade. Bannon and Navarro are also working on a special project related to Peter Navarro's. If you think he's got insight into the 2020 election, which the Navarro report's still the definitive, all that, Peter Navarro's perspective on Dr. Fauci is only second probably to Bobby Kennedy, but during the pandemic, you're even ahead of Bobby Kennedy because you saw it up close and personal. We're working on a special project. We're not prepared to announce it, but Dr. Navarro's got a very special project regarding Dr. Fauci, the pandemic, all of it that we'll be announcing in the next couple of days. Continue on, Dr. Navarro.
All right, let's go from the poison of Fauci and the promise of holding some of these scumbags accountable for what happened in 2020 to the economics. And Steve, you're right. What I do here, as much as I can, is try to talk about the bread and butter kitchen table type issues as it's reflected first in our policies and then in the data. And frankly, the news cycle is so absorbed with other stuff that they're missing this beautiful message about the Trump economy. If you look at the trade deficit, we had a good report out last week, which shows you Trumpnomics at work. I mean, you start with the surplus, the massive surplus, the record surplus in our petroleum exports. I mean, nobody at the depths of the energy crisis in the 70s ever believed we could be energy independent, much less the world's leading exporter. So that's helping a whole lot. The manufacturing sector is now in a strong upward trend over the last 6 months, as reflected in the ISM Manufacturing Index. And that is a result of our beautiful tariffs and our beautiful tax policies, like 100% expensing of building buildings that are going to make stuff here in America. And the overarching goal, Steve, going back to your little chalkboard in 2016 in campaign headquarters, which we used to talk about constantly, is we want this country to have strong and resilient supply chains and manufacturing facilities in the interests of both economic security and national security, with the goal of having our MAGA blue-collar workers at the tip of the prosperity spear with real wages rising on rising productivity. And that's where we continue to go. And as we get report after report after report, it shows these Trumpnomics policies are working. And I'm going to keep saying to Kevin Warsh and the Confederacy of Dunces at the Fed, don't even think about raising rates in the teeth of an energy price shock. Bernanke didn't do it. Greenspan didn't do it. You don't do it because it's the wrong thing to do in the presence of an energy price shock.
Hang on.
The politics,
hang on,
at least.
Hang on a second. We had the Treasury Secretary on here, I think Thursday or last week, for 30 minutes, walking through the underlying power of what we've been able to do, even in the face of the excursion, as President Trump calls it, into the Middle East, into Persia. You come on and you've got facts and data to back it up. Just a recommendation from a humble servant out in the hinterlands. I think it would behoove us to have you and Scott Besson.
I'll go with the servant in the hinterlands, but I'm not buying the humble. Go ahead. In the Oval, let's get all the media in there where they got to cover it. And instead of talking about Gene Pirro, instead of talking about the reflecting pool, and I understand President's, he's trying to clean DC up and make it the magnificent city it could be. If somebody paid attention to the details, as President Trump is, he's a builder and he's going to do the statues, he's going to do the pool, he's going to clean this thing up and make it magnificent. But this is the thing that drives elections. You and Besson in a two-hander in the Oval, forcing people to look at a couple of charts to talk. This is the type of word we got to get out on the economic messaging, because what's happening right below the surface is very powerful and really a change of 50 years of drift. This is the point that's so powerful. As President Trump did it in his first term, you could see the convergence, as you remember, in the fall of 2019. And the Chinese Communist Party knew that. That's why they tore up the Lighthizer-Navarro deal and threw it back into our face. And that's why, quite frankly, they declared people's war. We had the pandemic. They involved themselves in stealing the 2020 election. It's all very obvious how it rolls out. But now, once again, after the biggest comeback in history, after 4 years in the wilderness, he's come back, and really in the first 18 months, and that includes the excursion to the Middle East, the green sprouts of a major reindustrialization of the United States of America into a manufacturing hegemon is right before us, sir. It's a great idea, Steve, because once you're in the Oval and the president's talking, they got to cover it. They got to cover it. And we need to do it both to assure the folks out in MAGA land that we're getting done exactly what we promised in the election. But at the same time, we've got to inoculate ourselves against these mindless, senseless attacks by the left about, no manufacturing, tariffs cause inflation, all that crap, which we've shown to be absolute crap. So we've got to do this. But do me a favor, Steve, when I'm on camera and you don't want to talk about something like Jeanine Pirro, never mention her friggin' name to me, because that woman still refuses
We love,
to fire John Kraft,
Jeanine.
the prosecutor who was involved in putting you and me behind bars. Okay, so don't you dare! Don't judge Jeanine.
Hey, I can't deal with your.
It's like I'm just telling you, that guy. How is that guy still working here? Who pointed me at a courtroom and said I was above the law? You get my drift.
I get your drift.
Don't get me stoked up.
They accuse the president of having all these personal vendettas. The media never really met Peter Navarro. No, that's totally unacceptable. But my point is
that's a
that
professional. That guy is on the inside, Steve, of our Justice Department. That guy
Judge
was
Pirro,
responsible for so much. I mean, the people went after
I want
J6
Judge-
people.
I
He
want
went
Judge
after
Pirro-
you.
I
Went after me. He should be gone. Janine, are you listening?
I want Judge Pirro to know I had nothing to do with this outburst. This is Navarro. In fact, I've never brought it up
you
to her
set
ever.
me up here, but it was unwittingly, Steve. Sometimes it happens with you, but not
But
very
hang on,
often.
I'm gonna hold you through the
He's
break. Let me use an
exonerated,
example.
Judge. So
Let me use an example. The other night, and I'm gonna use Aaron Burnett. They spent 2 segments, half hour on CNN, going through Judge Janine, the meeting at the White House, the file she brought in, Burgum sitting there, being called to account, everything about the reflecting pool. So it's 30 minutes of prime time on the reflecting pool, not 1 second spent on what you're doing on the economy or what the real facts are for the American people. It just shows you the Trump derangement syndrome is only going to get more pronounced. Peter, I know you got to bounce, but I got to just hold on for 1 second. We're going to take a short commercial
I will
break.
stay with you, but dare I say, not one reflection on the issue.
Short commercial break. We return to Pebble Beach at the White House. Dr. Peter Navarro next.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Judge Janine Pirro, I love you. We love you in the war room. But I do think Peter has an item you ought to just think about. Anyway, moving on. So, Navarro, I wanted to start Monday with Harrison in Texas and you in Washington, because you two guys are great at motivating people for what kind of the more substantial things are, not the ephemeral that a lot of people dance around or skip around on. One of the things I really admire about what you're doing, and I think is very, very powerful, you're not just writing these pieces for the Washington Times and some of these great editorials, but are doing traditional TV hits like this morning. You're also making very short videos to explain to folks not simply the war on posse, but I think people that, because this show covers this in such detail, you're making these videos for people that don't really know much about it. I think it's very powerful. I want to make sure the war on posse is a force multiplier by going and pushing it out. But I would recommend, I think in the White House account, however you guys do it, these little TikTok or Instagram, whatever these are very, very powerful. Give me a minute on what you're trying to accomplish and how we at the War Room and the War Room Posse can assist you in getting this message out.
Sure. So every video begins with some kind of news or mostly the economic report of the day, whether it's the ISM Manufacturing Index or this week it's going to be the CPI, PPI, right? So what I do first is I write an op-ed which will typically go up on Real Clear Markets if it's the macro oriented. And then what I do next with that is strip it down into a podcast that goes on the Navarro Express. And then we take the op-ed and I turn it into a 45 to 60 second video to distill it to its essence. And I quickly record that. And all of it goes out to the Substack as well. So the whole point, Steve, is to segment the market. There's people who watch Instagram or X, Getter, Truth. They like Substack. They like a podcast like the Navarro Express, and they like reading op-eds. And the whole point of this is to inform the people, not just the MAGA, but the general public, on what the Trump economic plan is doing, what its mission, and what so far the effects are. And I don't know if anybody else is doing that. And I do know that the media has a vested interest in making sure that stuff doesn't spread. Okay, at any given day, they've got other things they think can sell soap or hemorrhoid cream better. And that's a failing of the way our media business model in this country is connected. But there's also a fair amount of the Trump derangement syndrome across. And Steve, it's not just the talent on the air, and it's not just the reporters, it's the producers. So it's just too many producers, including at places where they should be for us, that get in the way and block stories and people. I mean, there's a general ban on a lot of the surrogates from MAGA that still continues to today, even though Donald John Trump is president and all this information's coming out, verifying our worst fears about that 2020 election, our worst fears about Fauci killing people and all of that. The media still will not accept facts which lead to realities which contradict their message, which basically is designed to take down Donald Trump. So I'm trying to, in my own way, break through. So it's a multimedia thing. Substack, Instagram, podcast, Navarro Express, Getter, Truth, X, and outlets like Real Clear Markets.
Pretty amazing. Peter, where do we go to get all that? Because I want people to be a force multipliers, particularly as you're putting up these videos for people who are not part of the MAGA movement, who are not maybe Republicans, who are just our fellow citizens, but maybe don't understand the power of President Trump's economic program. Where do they go?
The central hub is peternavarro.com, peternavarro.com. It has links to everything, including the reports on the border and the election and all of that. And do sign up for the Substack, the Peter Navarro Substack, because we also post everything that's going to be out there on the Substack. And the technology makes things faster today. That makes all of this possible. It's easier for me, for example, to do a 60-second video, write it, record it, and get it out than it was back in the old days
of the first term
of old technology. So peternavarro.com. Always have fun with you, Steve, and I'm sure Janine will still have lunch with you, Steve. Maybe not dinner, but she'll still have lunch with you after the show, and we can order a little crow for her if you want. I'll pay for that.
She's too busy reinvestigating the reflecting pool. Dr. Peter Navarro from the White House, thank you so much, sir. I appreciate you.
My brother, Admiral.
Thank you, sir. Kobe, I tell you what, we're going to wait. Kobe is going to join us from Chapter. We're going to do that at the top of the hour. Grace Chung, our own Grace Chung, is with us. We're going to talk about how you get access to everybody using Bill Blaster, particularly today. He's had a couple of call to actions already. And Jim Rickards, I've asked Jim to change his schedule around. Jim was actually out mountain climbing over the weekend. And I reached out to Jim and said, hey, I think we need your wisdom and guidance on everything geopolitical, geoeconomic, and about capital markets. So Jim changed his schedule around. He's also going to be with us. Solomon, I think John Solomon's at the White House. He's at the White House today. He's going to come back and be at the studio at the bottom of the next hour to join us. Major updates from the task force, all of it. HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Steve. You get 2 weeks triple lock protection for free. $1 million triple lock protection. Talk to Natalie Dominguez and the team, particularly with everything we're hearing about artificial intelligence, AI, and cyber. We're going to have something, we're going to have to talk about artificial intelligence in the evening shows. HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Steve. Talk to Natalie Dominguez and the team today. No obligation. Free 2-week test period for $1 million triple lock protection. Short commercial break. Second hour of the morning war room is upon us.